Welcome everybody to our first meeting of 2021. We have a pretty full agenda. We're going to focus on our 2-year work plan today, but also want to give everybody a chance to share some of the things that they're doing in their current organization and the types of activities that they're up to. Does anybody have any questions or things that they'd like to add to the agenda?
And I can show the agenda now.
Yes,
so
please.
that y'all can see it. 1 minute. One more time. Let's see. There it is.
That's great. So right now we have about 15 participants. And I think what works best for our updates is just to go based on how you appear on my screen. And so I'll just call you out and hopefully have the next person up on deck listed as well. So Ron, it looks like you're the first to launch us off, and John Mack to follow, and then Shannon Weiss.
And also just a note that if you're not giving your update, just go ahead and mute yourself.
Okay, I'm Ron Roleri. I'm a director with Sonoma RCD. And I missed the last 2 or 3 meetings, but I've been following you by email. So I'm just gonna listen.
All right, thank you, Ron, appreciate that. John, and then Shannon.
So this is my first time attending, so I'm not sure I'm gonna provide an update, but
Yeah, sure. So
I've
John,
been watching
watching
this group from afar. I'm the natural resource manager at Permit Sonoma, and interact with forest landscapes and that kind of thing a lot in the course of the work. So thanks for letting me join.
Fantastic. Thanks very much, John, for joining us. We're really excited to have you guys aboard. I think you'll be a great addition to the type of work that we're doing, and hopefully we can share the things that all these different organizations are involved with. So thanks for joining us today. Shannon, and then Dee.
Okay, hello everybody. This is my first meeting as well. Thank you for letting me be a member to your working group. I work for Pacific Watershed Associates, or PWA as some folks call us. We have an office in Humboldt County and here in Sonoma County. And we have been volunteering on the Forest Advisory Council in Humboldt County for many years. So I wanted to do the same volunteer efforts for here in Sonoma County. We work on rural properties, forest lands throughout Sonoma County and all over the North Coast and over into Butte and south of San Francisco as well. But we have a lot of focus here in Sonoma County. We work at the open space district property. We work with regional parks. We work with Sonoma RCD all the time. We work with private landowners. I see Lynn here. She's here today. We currently have an active project on her property as well right now. So hi, Lynn. That's actually your map behind me here. So again, we focus on, we specialize in rural roads. So I'm hoping that I can be here to help the working group and offer whatever I can to help folks in the group in that. And I did look through the work plan that you guys have been going through. It sounds like there's a lot of exciting things, and being a Sonoma County resident for most of my life and many generations back, I have a strong personal connection to Sonoma County, and I want to do what I can to be a good steward and help out. So here I am. Hi, everybody.
Great, thank you, Shannon. Welcome to Forest Working Group. I can vouch for all the great work that you guys do with the Open Space District. We have them on contract for Saddle Mountain as well as Calabasas Creek Open Space Preserve, and they've done a phenomenal job in helping us to address a lot of the erosion concerns we have on either open space properties, and also contributing some of the easements as well throughout the county. So thanks for your participation. Dee, and then Carleone, please.
Yeah, I'm Dee Swanheiser, and on this group I represent Greenbelt Alliance, but Greenbelt Alliance has an important organization that it supports locally here, and it's Taking Action for Living Systems. We came out of the forest working group, and we really concentrate on fire and climate resilience in our forests, and trying to find long-term funding solutions for managing having our private lands, giving them a help in providing funds to better manage, well, not better manage, but increase the management activities on their properties. I would like to just put out that if there is someone here that knows a bit more about the 25 million PG&E settlement work that's going on, I'd like to hear that, and also about the upcoming, most likely, tax measure on the ballot in November for forests and fire fighting, and etc. So I'd like to just put that out there. If somebody knows about those subjects, I'd be very interested. And then we should find out with our group how we would engage in those processes to help our private landowners and our agency partners.
Okay, thanks, Dee. Dee is one of our steering committee members and one of our founding members of the organization. So thanks, Dee. Yeah, Taking Action on Living Systems is certainly a nice offshoot from all the work that the Forest Working Group has supported. So we're anxious to stay in tune with that. And I think the collaboration is really important for us to continue to serve here in Sonoma County all the activities that the Taking Actions group is doing. So we really appreciate that.
And
then,
I look
as
forward
far
to
as addressing the
Go ahead.
issue of PG&E, and I think that's something we should definitely keep in the minutes. I don't know if we can address it specifically today. If we have anybody who has direct knowledge, maybe we can say that as an agenda item later today. Okay, so I have Carleon and then Caitlin, please.
Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm Carleon. I work with John Mack and Robert Aguer, who are both here at Permit Sonoma, but have been working towards wildland urban interface, fuels management, risk reduction for many, many years, also with Fire Safe Sonoma, the nonprofit Fire Safe Council. So that's kind of what I do at Permit Sonoma right now, and this is definitely going to be a topic for the next year's plan. We are almost like inches literally from launching the outreach for the update of the Sonoma County Community Wildfire Protection Plan, which we're super excited about. And that is definitely something that we want the Forest Working Group involved in. I'm not quite sure exactly how to do that, because having been involved in this for as many years as in this group as many years as I can, it's a very amorphous group. So I don't know quite how to say we want you involved, other than we're going to throw you in the bucket with the agency group and see how that works out. If somebody has a better idea, let me know. But certainly I will be giving regular updates every month on where we're at and where we need help. And you know, it's a collaborative document, so we're looking for collaboration, and you guys are obviously going to be a lot of it. So that's super important. The other thing we're rolling out at the same time, no pressure, is another grant that we got from Cal OES and FEMA to do defensible space and structure hardening assessments in 13 areas throughout the county, followed up by an incentive program for property owners to actually do some defensible space and hardened structures. So that is also launching simultaneous with the CWPP. So I'm a little busy, but that's.
Is that the same as the brick grant?
No, The brick grant is another one that we did in conjunction with John Mack, worked a lot on that one as well. The brick grant is a proposal that we put into a new program that FEMA is launching. Can you guys hear my donkey in the background?
A little bit.
I wanted to say that so you don't think I'm wheezing. The brick grant is the brick program is a new FEMA program, which is doing the right thing, which is they're really trying to focus on pre-mitigation activities. Let's stop this problem from happening in the first place, as opposed to coming in after the event and catching up. And so Permit Sonoma submitted a $50 million proposal that will take 3 target areas through the county, which are all areas that have areas that comprise very dense urban housing with areas of more larger parcel urban housing, semi-urban, 1 to 5 acre parcels with houses on them, and also have large areas of surrounding wildland areas, large parcels of various descriptions. And the idea with the program is that we'll do a whole lot of intensive education and outreach and launch mitigation measures appropriate for each of those different WUI environments in those areas. So green space buffers up at the top, interfill and vegetation management in the large parcels, and then house and tight defensible space, and also starting to look at how do we buffer communities as opposed to individual structures in very tightly packed neighborhoods. Think Coffee Park, where you had one home ignition and then everything. What can we do to stop that first home ignition in those tight neighborhoods beyond sort of how we've been thinking about this project in the past? So there would be a lot of research involved and a lot of input from a lot of people. It's pretty exciting prospect, which we may or may not get. It's a grant application. It's not a done deal. But that we won't know about that until I think it's like June or something. They'll start throwing those back out. But it's an impressive idea. We also submitted a scoping grant for the same project. So if we don't get this, we'll be really working on scoping up a much more detailed program. So I think eventually we'll get funded for it, and it's super exciting, very collaborative in design as well. The 25 million from the county, I think that, and John, you can chime in if you want. The basic news is that we don't know what's going on with that really. They're still sort of thinking about it. They've hired a consultant group from Berkeley to help them try to figure it out. And it seems to be uncertain at this time, but definitely something to keep an eye on. That's the best I can do. John, you might be better at that than me.
Yeah, what I gathered from the last board meeting was the board's definitely committed 25 million. There was a lot of consensus around that. How that money's going to be allocated and to what, that was left up in the air. I just received an email and an invite for this group out of Berkeley that's going to convene a series of, I characterize them as like stakeholder meetings, basically, to sort of solicit opinion. And I assume is going to come back with a set of, here's what the community thinks kinds of recommendations. And then I would guess that, or hoping that the board at that point would then be able to say, okay, here's what we're doing, and you have to, and who's got to do it, and they'll direct the county departments or whoever to do that. I think there's a lot of the questions I have in my mind personally are, who's going to spend the money? Is the money going to pass through from the county to NGOs somehow or other entities? I don't know. I think there's been a lot of discussion about that. Or is the county going to spend the money itself doing the work? And I would guess, given how things compromise, that it probably will be a mix of things. So we'll sort of see. And then the other piece was the county the Gore did commit to spending a lot of money on infrastructure. So upgrading roads that were damaged by the fire, upgrading roads with turnouts and other features to make emergency ingress and egress better. The Trinity Cavedale Road community was well represented at that meeting, and I think would probably be representative of anywhere where there's roads like that in the county. So I think the county is going to definitely spend quite a bit of money on that. I mean, I don't know, it was a big figure, like 30-40 million just on road resurfacing infrastructure. And then there was a bunch of other infrastructure mixed into that in terms of communications and things like that coming out of the emergency services department. So anyway, stay tuned.
Quick question. The 25 million doesn't relate to PG&E, right? That you were just mentioning, Carleon and John. That's separate. Okay.
Well, the 25 million's out of the settlement, the PG&E settlement. So they were saying they're going to allocate at least 25 million out of the settlement to something called vegetation management. But nobody's really narrowed that down exactly where that would happen and what that would be, because that's the big question. And then there was discussion, this brick proposal that Carleon mentioned, it requires a 25% match. So there was discussion about that the match for that brick might come out of the settlement dollars, but would be in addition to the 25 million. So it wouldn't come out of the 25 million, it would be in addition. But I think all this is still up in the air and under discussion. So
Yeah, I agree. It tends to be a moving target. There's a lot of different sources of information. Maybe John, if you could answer this quick question, then we'll move on. Do we have like a definitive source of who could really help us understand what the county is trying to do? Because I know that there's a lot of people that are involved. I'm just wondering, we have a subcommittee that was trying to address how NGOs could be participating in that. So I wonder if you could, or carry on, maybe you can.
Well, the CAO's office has been sort of driving this bus from my perspective. So
okay, great. Then I can follow up with that. And
so Crystal,
just kind of keep tabs on that.
Crystal Kirahero has been the lead for the county on
okay, great.
Circulating, getting the departments pulled together and getting our opinions and things like that.
And that sounds good. All right, so next I have Caitlin and then Jean.
Must unmute. Hi, everybody. This is Caitlin from Sonoma Ecology Center. It's been a little while since I have joined you, and it's very nice to be among you. And my colleague Jason is here too, and we didn't have a chance to coordinate on who was going to talk about what. So I'm just going to jump in. On this topic that we just were talking about, the Ecology Center was invited to be on one of those CLE groups. So that's really good. And I would feel like we could reflect their stuff that Forest Working Group people care about, if that's of interest to anyone in Forest Working Group.
Caitlin, can you remind us what a CLE group is or what that stands for?
Sorry, it's this group out of UC Berkeley that the county is spending some of the PG&E settlement money to hire to do. John Mack was just describing the process of this sort of stakeholder meetings that they're holding. CLE stands for the Center for Law something Environment. So sorry for that acronym. And then from conversations I've had regarding both the politics of the PG&E settlement allocations and also this new sales tax measure that Dee mentioned that seems likely to come on the ballot this year. From what I can tell, Carol Hart and Linda Hopkins are the strongest sort of, county non-staff influencers. Well, I guess Carol is technically staff, but she doesn't always act like staff. So those are important connections. And it is, I think, anything that anybody here knows about which staff to work with on either of those points would be really helpful. Thanks, John, for mentioning Crystal. I keep wondering if someone at ORR also might be worth connecting with. So anyway, there's that. We just recently got a tiny bit of seed money from Fire Safe Sonoma to work together on writing up best management practices for vegetation management. As John was just saying, the phrase gets used a lot and people do all kinds of different things when they say they're doing vegetation management. So that's very exciting to try to codify what good practices are. And then also we have just recently gotten agreement from Oakmont. We're going to be working with them quite closely on vegetation management and planning and assessment of their situation. They are right next to Annandale, and there's a lot of concerns sort of both on the border with Annandale and also within the homes in Oakmont itself. So that's exciting. And my last item is that we just finished this contract with the ORR to do containment of toxic ash and debris in the glass fire footprint from burned structures and vehicles. So that went well, but it ended sooner than we had expected, and there's still lots of need out there. So we're working with like volunteers in Mark West and other places to try to finish that work as best we can.
Can I just compliment what what Caitlin just expressed there?
That's good.
Just really quick. Yeah, we were able to hit like over 125 structures through that ORR contract. So, you know, with help, with a largely due to help with the Friends of Mark West. So definitely want to thank Lynn in a major way. And Mark West needs a lot more help. So we're on the right path, but there's a lot more to do there. And then picking up with those BMP practices, we just got a little seed money from Fire Safe Sonoma to actually explore more funding to bring in a TAC committee and really start honing in on these best management practices. So if anyone is interested in that, or if anyone has any leads on where to find funding to help support that effort, that would be very much appreciated.
Thanks, Jason. I appreciate that. And thank you, Caitlin. I have Jean and then Brianna.
Good morning, everyone. So the Western Hills Fire Safe Council in Ukiah is just starting to get revved up. We're starting to look at grant possibilities. We have a list of different needs. And one of the things that seems to be the most difficult is getting money for home hardening. There's been money available for vegetation management on county roads and on city roads, because we are WUI. We've got city and county residents. And we have not been able to get funding for home hardening. We also haven't gotten any funding for the private roads that come off of the county roads. And not quite sure how to get that. If you have any grant ideas, let me know. As far as being chair of the Sierra Club's Northern California Forest Committee, we've got Mary Lee Guinion, who's been really seriously working on the state responsibility areas and how Sonoma County, the RCRC from the state is trying to minimize the ingress egress roads, and there's a lot of false narrative out there. The Board of Forestry is looking at what they're saying and what they're going to finally have. There's no decision that's been made with that. I was asked by the director of California Sierra Club to write a white paper on what's been going on with PG&E utilities in relation to veg management. And I finished it at 16 pages with an addendum because so much has happened within like 1 month of writing the white paper. And it's now ready to put out. And once I get it to my forest committee, I'm happy to provide it to you guys. And the bottom line is that PG&E has wanted to do a lot of veg management going way off of their right of ways. up to 100, 200 feet, taking down large trees. Right now, people in Santa Cruz and southern San Mateo County are really struggling, also in Napa County, and no doubt in Sonoma County, as well as further north in Mendocino County, and even up in Trinity. So the rate payers pay for veg management, and they're upping their rates, whereas to upgrade their highly antiquated infrastructure, that will come from the shareholders in PG&E, and they've been really not doing their job, and so they're just continuing to get sued. And we are going to be writing a letter to Judge Elsop, who is in charge of all the monies that came out of the San Bruno explosion that PG&E has to pay back. And he's been duped by them. He does not like PG&E. However, they have led him to believe, oh, you need to cut the trees because they're going to hit the lines, when there are actually triple insulated, steel reinforced aluminum lines that can bend down to the ground if a large tree falls on them. And there are breakers on the poles that can shut off the voltage, so there is no sparking and arcing and fires from these utilities. So that's something we're going after. The national attorney is going to be looking over our letter, and we'll be getting a letter to the judge. So that's that. We're also asked by the state director to do a thinning document on appropriate uses of thinning, which of course will be followed up by prescribed burns and mechanical means. And that's another document that I'm going to be presenting to our state forest committee in 2 weeks. And then that will be rolled out, maybe used nationally, will certainly be used throughout California. If you guys are interested in a copy of that.
Yes.
It's real. I want to say that the State Forest Committee tried to work on it, and it was too complex for them. But I have got botanists and registered foresters and landowners, and we really put together a great document along with a matrix and a glossary. It's really quite excellent. So I'm looking forward to that. We're also involved in the post fire restoration from the August complex, which is 3 national forests, and how that's going to happen, working with the supervisors. Whew. And then there's Jackson State Demonstration Forest. So there's SoCal in south of San Francisco and Jackson and Mendocino County. They're the only 2 redwood forests that are demonstration forests. And they're looking at doing something like 7 timber harvest plans. 5 or 6 of them are in the demonstration forest, and as a change from their agreement 15 years ago, they're looking at cutting down some of the largest trees. So we're working with several different NGOs to not have that happen. So that's my update.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that, Jean. Brianna, and then Robert, please.
Good morning, everyone. Happy New Year. So I'm Brianna Boaz, the Natural Resource Management Professor and Program Coordinator at SRJC. Largely, a lot of the efforts have kind of stagnated because we are completely online. And the way it's going right now, it's probably not going to be until fall 2021 that we're going to be able to hold any in-person classes. A lot of what I'm trying to do is reorient the natural resource management program to deal with pre and post fire vegetation management. And we're trying to build a boot camp. So maybe a 6 to 9 week long boot camp for students to come in and get all of the skills that they need using our kind of mini demonstration forest at Schoen Farm. It's about 120 acres that has not been well managed at all. And once we can open the doors to that, I welcome you guys to come in and use it as a site if you need to do veg management, fuel reduction training. It's a great resource. No one's really touched it, as far as I can tell, for decades. So we're trying to get those efforts off the ground, and student interest in forest management is very high. The semester officially started yesterday, and my inbox is already full of students looking for opportunities in the field, internships, jobs, technician positions, etc. So if you've got any of those on your radar, feel free to send them my way and I can broadcast them. I've got a job board going for our former and current NRM students. And a lot of that is hopefully we're going to start picking it up off the ground in end of summer and fall 2021 to really get it going. But some of the holdups have also been with the PG&E funding. A lot of that boot camp we were hoping to fund with the PG&E funds, but that is just in an amorphous cloud of uncertainty right now, it seems like. So that's what's going on at the JC.
Great, thanks, Brianna. Robert and then Lynn.
Good morning, everyone. Robert Aguer, I'm a registered professional forester over at Permit Sonoma. I work with John and Pierre Leone. I'd say coming out of our shop right now, pertinent to this group, we are in the very, very baby step, initial step of revamping our comprehensive tree ordinance. So I will send out a link to this group. There's a sign up link on our Permit Sonoma webpage to receive updates on that as that moves forward. So I'll make sure this group is aware of that. I think there's a few fuel reduction projects going on right now at the county between Permit Sonoma and Public Works. I was just out on the Northwest tree reduction project this morning, checking on those crews. Yeah, I think John and Carolyn have otherwise covered everything coming out of our shop right now. Brianna, I used to be on the advisory board for Cal Poly's Natural Resource Department, so I will send you some of my connections and links to get the JC students hooked up with jobs.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll type my my email in the chat box. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brianna manages a pretty robust advisory committee that really focuses on job opportunities for the students. And so that's one thing that she should pull you in on, Robert. Lynn, could you go next? And then Jason, please.
Hi, I'm Lynn Garrick. I'm a private landowner up in the Upper Markwest watershed, part of the Friends of the Markwest watershed and our Fire Safe Council up here. I just want to thank Jason and Caitlin and everyone at Sonoma Ecology Center for the fabulous job they did helping us do wattles in the watershed. We did a volunteer work party last Sunday. We had 20 people and we finished what I think were the 10 most critical building sites that we hadn't been able to get done prior to that. And a big shout out to Pepperwood as well, who sent 9 volunteers over and worked all day and worked really hard on some very challenging properties. So we're thrilled to have these new folks in our watershed, and the new relationship that we have with Sonoma Ecology Center is great. That's a lot of what's going on up here is the neighbor helping neighbor effort. There's still great concerns about erosion control, great concerns about how people can rebuild. And just to let Carleone know, we are also in the process just starting to update our CWPP, because we started that prior to the Tubbs fire. Then we had the Tubbs fire, and then we had the glass fire. So we really feel like we need to have a fresh look at what our goals and objectives are up here. So we're busy and having a good time.
Thank you very much, Lynn. Jason, and then let me see, Brooke.
Hi, everybody. I don't have too much to add. It's good to see everyone. Happy New Year. I think at the top of my list is just trying to get the conversation and the momentum going on post-fire restoration efforts from a vegetation perspective. I mean, we're going to have invasive species basically erupting in the fire footprint, especially the dozer lines. There's little to no funding to deal with it. The ORR has been hugely supportive with erosion control and toxic runoff, but it's kind of like the buck stops there. And as far as I know, the only other post-fire funds out there are the 319H water quality funds through the RCD, which have also been incredibly helpful, but they don't come through till 2 years after the fact. So if anyone knows of like any resources to get out there and control these invasive plants before they surge into our wildlands, we're going to see biodiversity dropping off at an alarming rate if we don't get ahead of this problem. So that's really like kind of first and foremost on my radar. And we do have some really good momentum going with Oakmont. So we're thinking we can help with those efforts, get that off the ground, and kind of use it as a template to guide future efforts. So that's a bright spot. But yeah, we need these resources. So I'd love to see the county strategize on like where those resources are. We've basically, not only that, but we've lost all our CAL FIRE fuel reduction funds. So it's looking pretty dire on some really pressing needs. So please let me know if anyone knows of any additional resources out there, because they seem to be few and far between for issues that are on the top of everyone's radar. So it's a little alarming that there isn't more support for this stuff. So the only way I can see it working is if we all work together to make the most of every opportunity and maximize all our resources. And the PG&E funds are great, but we're going to need more. I think we should really actually start looking into like tax incentives and coming up with like some way to generate some funds to start addressing these issues before they just continue to get worse. Sorry to be dire about it, but just trying to stay, solution focused, and it takes resources to make that happen. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, thank you very much, Jason. I appreciate that. It kind of reflects well on what we're trying to do with the 2-year work plan. So let's kind of keep those conversations alive. Brooke, could you please go next? And then I think Petronilla.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Happy January 21st. Hope everyone's doing well. Some of the projects that we have on our work plan out here on the coast, I'm the Sonoma Coast Regional Director for the Wildlands Conservancy, and a lot of my attention is focused on the Jenner Headlands Preserve. Out on the Sonoma coast, it's about a 5,600 acre preserve. So there's quite a lot of activities that we do out here on a yearly basis. In terms of forest management, we're looking at developing an EQIP contract with NRCS. We're working with Jeff Kelly. Specifically, we're looking at getting some shaded fuel break maintenance cost share money so that we can continue to maintain our shaded fuel break over on the east ridge of the Jenner Headlands. And that's about 100 acres of shaded fuel break that has already been implemented, but we need some funds to do follow-up maintenance work. Along with that, we do have a vegetation management plan with CAL FIRE. And so we're looking at partnering with them this spring and hopefully next fall as well to do applied prescribed fire into those areas where we already have a shaded fuel break established. So this is a somewhat of a long partnership at this point. We've burned about 50 acres of that east ridge, but we need to continue to maintenance through hand labor, mechanical labor, and then of course prescribed fire to maintain and then reduce those fuel loads. So hopefully we will have some burns this spring and fall with CAL FIRE. The other thing that we're working on is implementing our restoration forestry timber harvest plan. So I believe that's about 300 acres of area where we're planning to go in, thin out the smaller trees, the smaller redwoods and young firs, leave the biggest and best trees to grow up into and develop a mature forest ecosystem. So hopefully we'll be implementing that this late summer. We're working with Fred Ufret on that. He's our registered professional forester. And so hopefully we can actually move forward and begin that thinning process of about 300 acres of the Jenner Headlands Preserve. The other thing I wanted to remind folks, we've run workshops out here on our East Ridge to show folks what a shaded fuel break looks like, what it looks like after it's implemented, after it's been burned, and then also hopefully give them some tools and ideas to implement fuel breaks on their properties. And so we've run a number of different workshops over on our East Ridge. And so as you guys are working to develop your work plans and do outreach, we are more than willing to partner with any of your groups to lead a trip out to our East Ridge and do another workshop out there to show folks what we've done and lessons learned. So please keep that in mind. And I think that's it for me.
That's great, Brooke. I can vouch for those workshops. They've been extremely helpful. And I really encourage you, Brooke, to work with Adriana to get the word out whenever you guys have a critical mass to be able to bring together and explain what you're doing up on Jenner. Thanks for that. Okay, so I have Petriona. I'm sorry for butchering your name.
That's okay.
And,
it's okay. You can always.
I have Pierre Lacourt, please.
Yeah. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Great. And you can always call me Esther if my first name is, and I should change that. I thought I did, but I guess it didn't take. So I'm just here. I'm working with Carleon on the update for the CWPP for Sonoma County. And so mostly here just to, hear more from you guys, like just what Brooke, I think, was talking about regarding, some of the resources that are available. I mean, we have some great people here in the county, and I want to take advantage of all the work that's going on that your group is doing, and of course, include that in the CWP because that's a great resource. And so, yeah, that's all. I'm just here to observe and make notes and bug you guys later.
Thank you, Esther. Appreciate it. And Peter Lacourt, then I think that should do it. Oh, actually, we have Joe Butler as well. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Pierre Lacourt. I am the forest manager for the Pacific Union College Demonstration and Experimental Forest here in Aguer. I'm actually in Napa County, so I'm honored to participate in this group based out of Sonoma County, where we're all kind of doing the same work and having the same objectives. So I just really appreciate the opportunity to network with you all here today. The PUC forest is about 1,300 acres here in the hills above Napa County. We've got coniferous forests. We've got some oak woodland as well as some chaparral. I have a conservation easement through CAL FIRE's Forest Legacy Program, and I also have a CAL FIRE non-industrial timber management plan. The main objective I have in managing my forest is working to restore the fire resiliency of the forest and, frankly, just restore the overall ecological balance, which largely has to do with, getting to the vegetation composition that we had in the age of pre-European fire suppression. I do a lot of different types of projects here in the forest. I've been managing this forest for 3 years now, and the work is really picking up this year. I do some work with hand crews, some mastication, a little bit of herbicide, some prescribed fire, a little bit of timber harvesting. So I'm trying to implement the whole suite of forestry tools to help get my forest, back to a healthier state. To pay for this work, I do some grant work, not only through the PUC Forest, but also in conjunction with the Angwin Fire Safe Council and the Napa Communities Firewise Foundation, both of which I'm members of. I have to do some private fundraising, and then I'm also finally executing my non-industrial timber management plan with my first timber harvest this year. I'll be making a little bit of revenue off of that, some of which will go back into treating the lands that I'm harvesting from. Just trying to do that classic 1, 2, 3 playbook of thinning the overgrown understory, then selectively logging some of the overstory to get a better composition of the larger trees, and then following up with some prescribed burns, again, kind of restoring our wildlands to those, pre-European fire suppression days. I'm working on setting up a quarterly demonstration day because I am a registered demonstration forest with CAL FIRE. Frankly, I'm trying to just get enough work done so that I have something to demonstrate before I set these up. But I am now surpassing about 100, getting to 150 acres of treated lands, having experienced these different practices. So I'm hoping to do a demonstration day sometime in the spring or early summer in conjunction with the Napa RCD, the Napa branch of the USDA on NRCS, because I do some NRCS projects here in the forest, and as well as in conjunction with the Napa Communities Firewise Foundation. Just a little plug, I'm also looking for some parties that want to use a forested land to do long-term research projects. I've got really good land here that can support research projects, but I myself am just not really, I'm a one-person department, so I don't really have the ability myself to conduct these long-term research operations. So anybody's looking for a forest to do some research in, please let me know. As I mentioned, I'm also on the Angwin Fire Safe Council. I'm a board member of the Napa Communities Firewise Foundation. I would say our kind of two big projects we're working on right now is we're finishing up a county-wide community wildfire protection plan. We have individual CWPPs for our individual fire safe councils, but we really need one kind of broad, over-encompassing document. Frankly, that's going to help us go to the county and say, hey, Napa County, here's why we're worth giving funding to. An issue that I'm seeing that the Napa Fire Safe Councils and Firewise face is that since we don't have the backing of, some kind of official government organization, a lot of people still don't know who we are. They don't really have a good reason to trust us. The county is still a little skeptical they can trust us with large-scale funding. So I think CWPPs are important tools for fire safe councils to be able to tell larger funding organizations, here's why we're worth funding, because we've got this good, thorough game plan that we have rolled out. So once we get that done, we're trying to rely not only on some of these CAL FIRE grant opportunities for larger funding that I know basically everybody in this room, I'm guessing, is hoping to get some funding from. We're also hoping to get some of the Napa County PG&E settlement funds. Growing off of something that Jason talked about, we are seeing an alarming shortage of funding for some of this really critical work. And I personally feel that we need to be tackling some of these issues at the county scale with some kind of property tax bond initiative. I'm not a policymaker. I don't know the right answer here, but in my opinion, I think the residents of our counties are the ones that really have a stake in helping to fund some of this much needed work. And I think that our counties need to be a little more independent of some of these state and federal funding mechanisms that we're trying to rely on here. That being said, I have a lot of optimism about the future, but I am a little alarmed at, the challenges we're facing. And I think that's why it's so important that we're coming together as a group to try to brainstorm and combine our resources. So again, Pierre Lacourt here, and I really look forward to continuing to be involved with this group.
That's great. Thanks, Peter. Really appreciate your comments and all the great work you're doing. We will hopefully be hearing a more definitive description of the type of work you're doing next month. You're on our agenda for a presentation next month. So I look forward to hearing that. Jill Butler and then Adriana, please.
Good morning. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thanks, Jill.
Okay. Jill Butler, sorry for the background noise. I'm a retired CAL FIRE forester, and I'm also representing the Gualala River Watershed Council. Let's see. First, I wanted to say I sat in on our workshop last month, and I thought it was fantastic. So kudos to everybody on that. Also, I was disappointed at the turnout. So I did want to say, I think we had about 30 people, and we would have been thrilled to have that for, a regular in-person meeting. But I think we can accommodate a lot more people on Zoom. So hopefully for, as long as we keep using Zoom, we can do more publicity and get more people, get that great information out to a lot more people that can use it. Let's see, last week I sat in on the Good Fire Alliance town hall for the Bodega Occidental area. Also very good. I'm so impressed with what that group is doing. And the Watershed Council, we continue regrouping after the retirement of our executive director of 25 years, Kathleen Morgan. But I think we have a really great candidate.
You're breaking up a little bit, Jill. Can you repeat what you said, the last couple sentences after Kathleen?
I think I was saying that we have a real good candidate for our new executive director that we hope will start next month.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And thank you for attending the workshop. And that's a great suggestion to try to be more proactive on our public relations. So thank you.
Yeah, because
Jill.
I'm pretty sure we could have accommodated people instead of 30. So let's shoot for.
Totally agree with you on that. Adriana?
Hi, everyone. Yeah, Jill, thank you for that suggestion. I feel like that's a great idea for our 2-year work plan when we talk about outreach more. How do we get more eyes on our events? So thanks for that thought. An update from the Goldridge Rcd. So I am the community outreach and project manager for the Goldridge Rcd, and I also act as the coordinator for the forest working group. And I just had a couple updates. I think some good news. I think Jason Wells has talked about this in the past, but I'll just give the update again that the RCDs in Sonoma County, Napa, Mendocino, and Lake are joining together under a grant from CAL FIRE under Prop 68 funds to operate a local incentive plan that is going to kind of play the role of CFIP. Since CFIP isn't active right now, and it seems like CAL FIRE may be interested in getting kind of like having someone else administer CFIP. So this is sort of a pilot project on that, and we're calling it the North Bay FIP, or Forest Improvements Program. And we're going to be launching in February, so you'll probably see some chatter about that. It's a 3-year program aiming to treat some 500 acres, I think, and we expect that like roughly probably 40 different landowners or so, 40 different projects or so will be funded through those dollars. And as an incentives program, the goal is that it funds not 100% of the project costs, but more like 60% of project costs. So really similar to EQIP or what CFIP used to be. We're also really trying to target disadvantaged communities, which are primarily in Mendocino and Lake counties. So quite a bit of those dollars will be going up there. And yeah, so just stay tuned. I'll give updates every month to let you know how it's going. I think probably the first batch of applicants or applicants will be people that have been backlogged from CFIP. So we're probably going to get in a lot of those people who have been waiting, and then so that first spring cycle will have like kind of that backlog of people getting considered for funding and getting approved, and then in the fall we'll consider another batch, and maybe that will be some fresh folks who hadn't applied before, and yeah, it'll go on for the next 3 years. So that's great. Another update is something I'm just excited about that the RCD has been kind of talking about for a while, but has not had the, hasn't really happened before, is we are creating a collaborative forest management plan with the help of a local forester named Russell Kobayashi. He's going to be contracted to put together a collaborative forest plan for the community of Joy Ridge. So there are some landowners out in Joy Ridge who have identified that they have some common management goals, and they're interested in making this management plan for the whole group of them. Not yet determined how many landowners that's going to be or who exactly. They're still in neighborhood conversations about it, but the idea of having a collaborative plan is exciting to us because these are generally, small properties in the 10, anything between like 5 and 20 acres. So having a group of these guys under one management plan should make it easier for them to get funded for work and to like coordinate the kind of work that they want to do across property lines, which is totally within our goal of seeing more landowners engaging and getting more work done in places where it hadn't really been happening before. So, and this was all inspired by one landowner had used a timber harvest. He used an exemption to do some thinning around his property within that defensible space zone. So there's like a special exemption if you're going to be taking trees out from within your home zone. I think Lynn and other Mark West Monon's Real residents are familiar with that exemption, and so other neighbors were like, "Huh, how'd you do that? What's going on over there?" So it's a nice opportunity for people to talk about what exemptions and other things are available to them, and just how what their options are for management. So that's a good thing, and I think we'll continue to engage with that group and make sure that they have success over time. And maybe, they can act as a pilot for other neighborhoods who want to do the same. So those are my two main updates. Yeah, thanks, Kim.
All right, great. Thanks, Adriana. I'd just like to report out on what the Open Space District has been involved with lately. The Vital Lands Initiative is going to the board next Tuesday for final approval. That's really exciting for us. We've invested about 2 years of activity to try to get as much public participation and transparency about what that plan looks like. We had scheduled a presentation by Mr. Arias and Alex Young to share some of the tools and kind of aspects of the Vital Lands Initiative that addresses specifically protection of forests. But since the activity is going to be approved by the board next Tuesday, we thought it would be better to postpone until next month's meeting. That way we can really show you and share with you some of the ways that the Vital Lands is going to be implemented on the ground. And so Misty's available for that, as well as Alex Young, who can share with us some of the interactive maps that we want you guys to use and take advantage of in order to find out what's happening in your particular neighborhood and or different projects that you might be interested in. The other thing I wanted to mention is something that came across our staff was a training series that's being conducted by the Karuk tribe for 2021. And it really looks super interesting, sharing with folks different ways to do forest and fuel management on properties, workshops on prescribed burns, tool safety and things like that. And I'll work with Adriana to send out a link to that series of workshops. But I'll leave it at that right now, and hopefully we can try to get back closer to our agenda. But I do want to kind of recognize all the really valuable and rich input you guys have shared today. I think this is one of the strongest things about our working group is being able to hear all the fantastic work that everybody's involved with. So it can be discouraging, but you're not alone. And I think as the words of yesterday's inauguration, it's all about unity and trying to work together on all this. So I appreciate those, that issue. So next on our list is our accomplishments report. So I'll hand it off to Adriana.
Okay, thanks, Kim. And I will share just a quick summary of accomplishments. So yeah, the steering committee went through and looked at what we had accomplished in our last funding period, which was October of 2019 through December of last year. Just thinking about what we've done with the funds that provided to us by one of our major funders. Major, I mean, not big money, but they are one of our significant funders. We wanted to let them know what we've done. And so just as a quick roundup, here is what the Forest Working Group has been busy doing for the last year plus. So we developed a new website, sonomaforest.org. Same URL, I think, as our last one, but a new look and some new resources there. We were able to leverage the funds from our grantor and raised another $7,500, covering about 40% of our budget. So that was great. We increased our membership by 25% and have a total of 142 subscribed members on our listserv. And at our monthly meetings, we had 47 unique attendees, and they represented roughly 36 different agencies and organizations. And our average meeting attendance was 14. So you can tell we had some, Common Core kind of like people who come every month, and then like some other folks who just kind of like dip in and out, which is really nice to see. It keeps it fresh and brings in a lot of information into the group. We co-hosted or hosted 5 educational events, and they were a event out at Monon's Rill organized by Fire Forward or the Good Fire Alliance, talking about cooperative prescribed burning. I was back in October. We supported UCANR's Forest Stewardship Workshop series. This one was, so UCANR does this workshop series all across the state, but it was in Ukiah. And so Jason Wells went up as an educator, and we had, I went and supported them too, and participated in the workshop. And so this was a really great way of seeing how they do sort of the boot camp idea that we have been talking about as a working group. So that was great to see and just take some notes on, and then hopefully in the future we'll be able to promote it to even more Sonoma County landowners to make sure that they go to this workshop too. We hosted back in July, we had CAL FIRE and local fire reps talk about the outlook for the 2020 summer fire season. Super interesting conversation, and they were spot on. It was an active fire season for sure. We had, just in December, we hosted that virtual workshop on post-fire recovery for forest and rural landowners. And then supported the conversation of the Joy Ridge community to talk about a collaborative forest management plan. So that's kind of just like a taste of what we've done last year. I know we've done even more and more diverse things in past years when we didn't have a pandemic, but that's where we were, what we could accomplish last year. And I hope we do even more of that in the coming months. We also had a number of brown bag speakers. So they've covered topics like the Bouverie Preserve post-fire vegetation response analysis. That was from Arthur Dawson, bringing in his ecological history perspective. We had a speaker from the Sierra Club talk about biomass utilization. Brooke gave a great presentation on shaded fuel break project at the Jenner Headlands. And Fred talked about the impacts of the Walbridge fire on his property in Healdsburg. And we also had that big discussion about the PG&E settlement funds last fall. Other outreach accomplishments included the production of our quarterly newsletter. We made a summer and fall newsletter, and we'll continue to do that every quarter. The steering committee, the services committee produced this great forest landowner stewardship guide, which helps forest landowners from as little as 1 acre to 100 acres think about who are the professionals they need to be in touch with for whatever issue they're facing. And we successfully held monthly meetings. So I just wanted to give that report because I'm proud of everything that you all have been able to do. And I think it also gets our wheels turning as we think about our 2-year work plan that we're going to be setting up at this meeting. So.
That's great. Thanks for sharing that. Does anybody have any comments on that impressive list of activities we've been able to accomplish?
Well, Adriana, I think you did a great job.
Thanks, Ron.
I concur. I think it's just amazing that of all the activities, all coordinated by one person. I really appreciate that. I know you work with a lot of us to coordinate these different events, but it's really exciting to see all the work that's happening vis-a-vis the Forest Working Group. And I personally want to thank you all for all the contributions you had for the Vital Lands Initiative, because we did host a couple of different meetings where we gave some presentations as the Ag and Open Space, and you were able to participate in some of the public meetings we hosted pre-COVID. So it really is with great gratitude that we're able to get that approved. So I wanted to thank you all for that. With that, I wanted to move on to our next item. I am, let me see, it's focusing on the steering committee report. Dee, would you like to share what your thoughts on our discussions about the work plan? You're still on mute, Dee?
Yeah, I think that our discussion will really cover what we talked about during the steering committee meeting. So I don't think that I need to report anything. I do hope, I left the meeting a little early, and I hope that we did include some references to working more closely with the Taking Action for Living Systems group, so that both groups are more productive.
Absolutely, thank you. Jason, do you have any kind of comments about our process on the work plan draft?
No, I thought, we covered a lot of really interesting material. I think one thing that kind of resonated with me is developing, a seasonality for the most urgent topics to cover, and then maybe filling the blanks with more interesting research discussions and brown bag conversations. But yeah, I think the Forest Working Group, is a wonderful group. Another thing that Dee brought up that I thought was really significant is that we cover a span of generational institutional knowledge. And that is something that's really important to capture and maintain. So it's another real strong point for the Forest Working Group. And then, I really appreciated what Jill was bringing up on, how do we really kind of take advantage of this COVID online Zoom era and kind of use that to help to build momentum and education for all these important needs. And, on that note, Devin brought up a really cool concept of basically poaching from existing resources and populating off of what is currently online for expert discussions on fuel management and, erosion issues or what have you. And then maybe going from that to building into more panel discussions of experts to kind of pool that information and get it through to the community. So I think that covers kind of my takeaways from our discussion.
All right, that's great. Thank you, Jason. Adriana, do you want to kick us off? Well, actually, the one other thing we didn't touch on was fundraising. Adriana, do you want to address that issue?
Sure, yeah, I was actually thinking that was kind of one of the things that stood out to me from our work plan discussion too, was just the need to fundraise consistently and just acknowledge that our funding isn't secure for our work. In fact, right now we are trying to do our big year push to fundraise, and we have a budget of about $20,000 a year, maybe a little less. So we have, some in the past we've received the majority of those funds through a single funder, but it's never secured that they're going to be funding us year after year. So I wanted to spend some time thinking with you guys about other opportunities to cover those costs. And it could be even just a small grant from participating organizations. If you happen to know that your organization, has funds that are focused on outreach or collaboration or something like that, that would be great for you to let me know. We can talk about what's the best way to, write a letter requesting support. Or if you think of just other opportunities that you've come by, but it wasn't quite the right fit for what you do, but it would be a good fit for the Forest Working Group, please pass those along too. Yeah, I think that's all I was going to say. So.
Great. So, I think one thing that we really want to try to focus on while we go through our work plan is kind of our structure of how the Forest Working Group was founded and how we do our best work. And that is really through subcommittees. So we added the steering committee to help us guide us through this process, but in no way is that steering committee designed to make the decisions for this working group. We really want to emphasize the importance of that. So with that in mind, we created a series of subcommittees that were designed to address certain issues like education, and then fundraising was part of that. The steering committee wanted to kind of continue to reflect that structure of having subcommittees addressing these different issues. But then we also have specialized subcommittees that focused on specific issues when they came up, such as the PG&E funding. Everyone was interested in knowing more, and we wanted to provide some input to the board about what we felt was an important way to direct those funds. And so Jason and Sonoma Ecology Center helped lead a small subcommittee to discuss that and determine exactly what contents we want to include in a letter like that. That's just a good example of how we best do our work, is being able to combine our efforts and address a specific need that might be countywide, might be in a specific area within the county in order to get this work done. And so I want you to keep that in mind as we go through our work plan to make sure that we try to address the things that you feel are important in Sonoma County or your particular forest. How do we outreach to landowners? How do we best continue to raise the bar on our education on how forests should be managed or share resources, all those types of things. As we go through this work plan, keep those thoughts in your head to how you could help contribute to making this work plan better and continue with the product that a funder would be very excited to help support. So with that, let's kind of move into our work plan draft. Adriana, do you want to just share the draft on your screen and go from there?
Yes. 1 minute. Yeah, and I thought I wasn't really sure how we wanted to go through this since it is kind of a big document, and probably everyone hasn't had a chance to review it, but I thought maybe the steering committee could bring up the kind of like the biggest discussion points just for the time that we have, and then afterwards people can go through and kind of like nitpick on wording or whatever on their own time outside of the meeting. Oh, and by the way, so the time period is this month through the end of next year. So that's our 2-year time frame. We start off with an introduction about who we are, what we do, what our mission is. And I know in the past we've had like long discussions about mission and strategy and stuff, but hopefully we're settled on some of those things. And then we start with our first section, which is really about education and outreach. We say that we will focus our educational messaging around core topics to expand the public's understanding about these topics as they relate to our forest lands, silviculture, water conservation, wildfire management, resilience, biodiversity, wildlife habitat and fisheries, ecosystem services, and land protection and restoration. So then we divide up our work into these kind of tasks. The first task is actually a task for the working group, which says like we as a working group want to stay informed about forestry issues, best management practices, and services available to the public to ensure we are providing each other with and the public with the best information. So I guess another thing too is that as we went through the last year's work plan, we actually did tweak some of the tasks to make them more achievable, because I think we always want to be realistic about what we're really able to do as a working group, since this is no one's, full-time job. So I think in the past, this was framed more as like, we will research XYZ we updated it to say like, we're gonna have a goal of keeping ourselves informed of XYZ. So those things are, just up-to-date forestry issues, emerging fields in science. We want to learn from each other and from technical service providers in particular about the best ways to reach the public with technical information. We want to stay informed of regional planning and other initiatives being conducted by local, state, or federal governments or others. And we want to update our documents as we need to so that they're up to date with that kind of information. Next task is to, so this is, I think, something that we'll want to talk about as a group. In the past, we had sort of identified watersheds and specific issues to each watershed that we wanted to kind of like keep in mind and prioritize. Okay, this watershed really has an issue with sudden oak death. We want to be outreaching to the landowners there so that they have the support that they need, et cetera, et cetera. And I think as we looked through those watershed priority issues, we realized that first of all, we didn't totally know all the different issues in each watershed. Maybe like didn't really know the best ways to address them. So through our conversation, we landed on the idea of tasking ourselves with assessing those watersheds. So what we came up with was a task to conduct a countywide watershed analysis to assess the conditions and level of need in each forested watershed. And these assessments can be filled out by our forest working group members, different partners, and members of the public. The goal is to have an assessment that we use to track watershed conditions over time and identify and address areas of need. So some of these conditions might include just a general picture of like, what is the vegetation type in that watershed? What's the status of their riparian cover? Other forest health issues. Are there species of concern like salmonids? What's the vegetative fuel conditions? Some big questions, but they're all to help us characterize each of these watersheds so that we really understand what they need. We also thought it'd be really interesting to like get an idea of like how many acres are burned in that watershed through wildfire or burned through prescribed fire. And then more social things like, do they have a watershed council established? Do they have any fire safe councils in their area getting work done? Is there, a watershed management plan? How many acres of forest land in that watershed are under a forest management plan? How many acres have been treated? So things like that can help us kind of get a better idea of what we're working with. Because there are some, I think the thought was like, there are some watersheds that have a lot of attention, are getting a lot of care, and then there are some that aren't getting much. So we want to be aware of which those are. So we made this long list of the different watersheds.
Can I interject real quick?
Yeah.
I think this is really important to consider, and historically the Forest Working Group thought that watershed units was an appropriate size for us to monitor and recognize the type of work that we've done. We as the collective Forest Working Group have done in those areas. This is a huge endeavor though. It could be, we could spend years developing this assessment, but we wanted to try to make it short and sweet. And we consider like some type of like report card where we just have, the bare minimum of what we know about each watershed and try to task ourselves with populating that as a working group. Because that's the cool thing about our working group is that we do work in different watersheds. We have RCDs focused on a variety of landowners across many watersheds. So we do have sources of information. Some are much greater than others. And so we thought that this would be a good task for the working group to take on. But again, it would be, I see this as a perfect subcommittee type activity where we have a couple of members who say, yeah, I'm totally on board. I'd love to help support that. At least the design of the report card that we would try to used to apply across all watersheds. So be really interested to get your folks' input on that.
So this is John. Yeah, I just wanted to throw out a couple things here for you guys to consider. So some of you are probably aware of the Russian River Regional Monitoring Program effort that's been underway for about 2 years now. So that's a whole Russian River watershed, so going all the way up to Mendocino to Sonoma. And that group is focused a lot on water quality, especially like literally in the water kind of water quality. But we've been having discussions, and I've been pushing them all along, that in order to assess the health of the Russian River, you have to look at the terrestrial ecosystems in addition. So they're getting very close to forming a technical advisory committee, which is really going to dive into the details. I've been pushing them to say that TAC should have a terrestrial working group that focuses on terrestrial ecosystem health, in particular forests. But I mean, we obviously have a lot of other terrestrial systems, grasslands and chaparral and things like that. So I just sort of throw that out there and then the other thing is there's a big literature on how to do watershed scale or regional scale ecosystem health monitoring. I mean, that's not something that's new there's a lot of thinking around that. I've worked on a lot of projects at that scale over my career. So anyway, there's a lot of stuff that you're not don't have to create stuff from scratch, so to speak. I mean, obviously you can build off of other efforts and other programs depending on what it is. So anyway, I just sort of throw that out there as just a point. But I am interested in this TAC and a terrestrial work group under this Russian River framework, because that's got a lot of oomph behind it. There'll be funding. There's a lot of science behind it in terms of SFI's backstopping quite a bit of it in terms of the science and the monitoring framework and things like that. So anyway, I just sort of throw that out there that's as another watershed scale or watershed focused approach.
Thank you, John. I just want to respond to that really quickly by saying I think that there are so many different assessment efforts going on and data gathering efforts going on, and I feel like the working group, maybe what we're pointing at here is just a desire to stay informed and try and take advantage of those different things that are happening, like you said, with this Russian River Watershed Collaborative. And I know Caroline dropped a note in the chat about the CWPP doing some of this too. Maybe, yeah, instead of trying to start from scratch, maybe we should just be leveraging all the work that's already happening.
Yeah, and then Ag and Open Space did a riparian corridor analysis, mostly GIS based with ground truthing of where it is, where there is riparian forest and along the corridors. So, I mean, there's a bunch of pieces parts that are out there that could be leveraged.
Yeah,
I'd like to second. Go ahead,
Jill.
Kim.
No,
okay. I'm just seconding what John and Adriana were saying. I was picturing trying to answer the original questions for the Gualala River, and my eyes rolled back in my head. But I do think someone, even this would be a pretty big job, but someone could figure out what plans are existing and where there is some of that data available, and that would be very worthwhile and useful and doable.
Absolutely. I think you're absolutely spot on as far as the reality and the logistics of doing a full assessment. I don't think that we had any ambitions to try to accomplish that. But it was trying to, again, helping us to prioritize our work related to the vast number of watersheds we have in this county. and then where the Forest Working Group, I don't know if you, some of you might remember a map that the Open Space District did a while back, where we just highlighted watersheds that which we were conducting workshops and were active in, just to show people that, you know, what groups were being served, who is participating. So it'd be on that scale, something that was simple to read and simple to understand, but also to give us a sense of where we've done our work and then where we should be focused next. Dee, you had a comment?
Yeah, I really think that this is a huge, great idea. And it seems like it really does need a little more smithing, if you will, and refining, because I don't think the working group should be responsible for doing this, but we should be encouraging the county or, you know, a wider, larger organization to do this analysis and find out what is being done in each of those watersheds. And so I just want to say, I think that we really need to redo this part of our work plan, so that we say that we would look into how we could inspire or encourage a public agency to do this work. It's definitely almost a grant like project that should be done. And then to ask John if watersheds should be addressed in the general plan as a unit of assessment for all the things you're talking about. And I really support the idea of having you have a terrestrial component to the Russian River watershed, because we've been working, TOWLS has been working in the Mark West watershed on the terrestrial aspects because of all of the fires and the forests and, you know, just all of the terrestrial issues. And we're not addressing the all of the amazingly important work that's going on in terms of the water quality and quantity and the erosion and all the other aspects of that watershed. And the Laguna Foundation considers the Mark West Creek watershed a sub watershed of their watershed, and then the Laguna watershed is a sub watershed of the Russian River watershed. So it gets pretty interesting, and they're all related. So it's just a huge task. I wonder if there's something we can do at the county level to help with this assessment.
Okay, I'm seeing a comment by Esther suggesting that the CWPP for the county would do some of the work addressing that. I like her suggestion to get Pepperwood involved, and since they're not here, I think we can all agree to that. So I think those are great suggestions. I think in light of the time, if we could just take maybe one more comment on this.
I would love to put my oar in and ask if some of that just data gathering work might be suitable for some of Brianna's interns.
That's a great suggestion.
Ah.
All right, so
if I can just, whatever we gather in terms of for the CWPP, we're probably going to be using the supervisory districts as the geographic descriptors for the county. And in every one of those, I really would like a complete list of, certainly we need to know all the projects that have been done, and I don't know all that, and who the cooperating groups are, who's doing what. That's a really good place to at least house all of the go here to ask more questions information. And absolutely, it should come up as one of the priority plans listed in the CWPP at the end of the day.
Carolyn, do you think that there's any possibility that we could receive funding to do some of that work for the CWPP?
Probably not in the time that we have to do it. The CWPP, we're on like basically a 1-year schedule. So this is gonna be a lot of churn very quickly. But you know, all the help that we can get in identifying who those groups are, where they are, what they've done, the resources that are available. And this group obviously is going to be a really important conduit for all that information because everybody's from everywhere. But it did inspire me to definitely, for my agency collaborator stakeholder group, I'll definitely put a please list all of the groups question in whatever we end up with for a data gathering form for them.
Okay.
And Carleon, does that data gathering include contact, email addresses, names, or anything like that, so that they could communicate with each other just from what you're gathering for the CWPP?
You mean, am I going to list individuals' emails in the CWPP who can be contacted in a given area for given questions?
Well, I
Is that
guess
what you're
that's
asking?
I guess that's too big of a chore, but
There might be, you know, obviously the RCD is going to say, yeah, call us up. Not everybody will. I think it'll be probably on the basis of what the group itself wants to have listed in the CWPP.
yeah, that would be great. Yeah.
Okay, for the
Can I
interest
just
of
add
time,
a
let's
quick
keep
comment,
moving.
Kim?
I'm
Can I
sorry,
just
go
add-
ahead, Shannon.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up, just as we're talking about these topics, PWA has over 30 years of data collection in the Gualala River watershed, the Marquess Creek watershed, all over Sonoma County watersheds for road assessments and sediment from rural roads that's leading into our tributaries here in Sonoma County. So we have so much data, and I've always dreamed about collecting all that data into one great map of where what roads we've assessed and what roads we haven't assessed and where we've implemented, and be able to have that information collected. It's just, it would be such a huge task. It would be hard to undertake that on a volunteer basis. We would definitely want to try and find funding, I think, to try to think about collecting such a vast amount of information. But I think it would be very useful.
Well, I think that's especially valuable because where we tend to lack data is on private roads. And that's probably where most of your data lives.
Yeah, well, when I was introducing myself, we do so much on private roads with the assistance of the RCD, but also just directly with private landowners. And we work with the district, and we work with the parks, and we work with so many different types of entities that it's not just pulling from one RCD or one district. It's we're very widespread all over Sonoma County and rural Gualala and beyond in Mendocino and Lake and Napa and such. But as far as thinking about Sonoma County and upland assessments, we have like over 30 years of boots on the ground reports.
And is that, and those reports are shareable?
Well, I think that all of our grant funded work in the RCD, when folks come to us, we generally talk to the people who are our clients that we work with to release the data to them. So there is a sensitivity. We also work with cannabis clients, and so there's certain, we would have to look more into that as far as putting dots on the map, but we certainly have sediment numbers that we could share.
Just so you know, the counties, we have a big grant in the Region 2 Water Board, so the Southern County, where we've been doing county road assessments for sediment and developing a rapid assessment protocol developed by Second Nature, and then working on our own. So I mean, it'd be great to talk, because maybe we can collaborate on that kind of thing. So.
Yeah, we did all of Dutchville watershed, the county roads in Dutchville watershed for the county, and the Marquess watershed. We did the road that goes Marquess Springs Road. We did a road assessment with volumes for that as well. I don't know how much has been implemented there, but.
No, I'd like to know about that, because that's where, let's talk offline about that.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Sounds really great. And maybe it comes down to some type of gap analysis that we have a lot of rich data. We might not cover the whole county. I think that was one of the things that the steering committee was discussing. Is just there's inequality as far as how much services are being offered to various watersheds, various community groups, and maybe there's a plethora of information on other watersheds that just hasn't been widely shared. So maybe that's the direction we take this. In the interest of time, I think we do need to move on to some of the other tasks. Adriana, do you want to lead us on that?
Sure. So outreaching and educating through brown bags and workshops has always been a standing goal of the working group. And over the years, we've had a whole long, rich list of different topics that we want to touch on. And I have posted those here sort of based on some kind of organizing general group. As you can see, it's very long. We've achieved a few of these, but the list grows faster than our events are able to take place. So that's just kind of a general question that I think I have for the group is how do we want to tackle that? But during our steering committee meeting, we had a suggestion from Devin that I think really stuck with us, which was we should, instead of prioritizing what interests us, we should prioritize what partners are already talking about and just really use the energy of the working group to promote those events that partners are already doing and support them however they need us to. And then after that, if there's some other really pressing topic, then we prioritize that second. And I think some of the pressing ones are seasonally specific ones, because we've talked about presenting on timely topics, for example, addressing the drought in the winter and wildfire in the spring so that we can get ahead of those issues and really help people think proactively about them. And then making time to talk about really important, urgent matters when they come up, so we're not ignoring them. And everything else after that is kind of third priority, I think. So I would love some thoughts on that, if that feels right to everyone, or if there's a different way to approach it.
I'll chime in. I think one thing that we should do for sure is just have a annual presentation by Marshall Tuberville and other folks like we did on the summer fire outlook. I think everybody would recognize the value of that, and for them to be able to provide us good information about what we should be concerned about, that would be really helpful.
Thanks. Any other thoughts? Otherwise,
Does anyone else have any comments?
If this feels good, we'll leave it as is.
I'll just chime in that as far as trainings, I think we always have done both things you mentioned, publicize, what any of our partners are doing and ask us to help them publicize. And then, tried to address the topics, the unanswered topics that we saw as being landowner and community needs. So I suspect we'll want to continue to do both.
Thanks, Jill. Yeah, so identifying what are those needs that landowners have that they're not really getting fulfilled anywhere else, and then trying to address those. I think that's true. Maybe that should be added into our priorities here somewhere. I'll just make a note.
Adriana, are you going to be able to send us a link so people can visit the doc and spend a little bit more time with it?
Yes, it was in the email with our agenda for today, and I'll send out another one with the minutes.
Perfect, thanks.
Okay. Next one is to reliven our house meetings, which we used to do in the past, and just did one in December, and I really thought it was great. So those house meetings are intended to support landowners in addressing their neighborhood forest issues, understanding the funding and technical assistance available to them, and getting help on coordinating with each other. And I think Kim said that in the past there was sort of a set team, which was Fred, Jill, and Steve, who made up the house meeting team that we could offer to different communities who wanted them to come and present. Yeah, I think this is a great thing I wanted to bring back, and I just wanted to hear yay or nay or other thoughts on it.
Carly was quite active on those house meetings too.
Okay, good to know. And so, yeah, and over time, people's availability changes. And so it's like, you know, do we have like a fresh team of people who could help with house meetings if the original team isn't available any longer? Or just, is there any way that we need to adapt this?
I think that this is Ron. I've seen issues where with equip, you have to have a minimum acreage, or certain programs, you have to have a minimum acreage. And if you get a group of homeowners to go in together, you get a better, you can qualify for a management plan, which steers you to other regulations and all, but it's not scary if you've done it already. But it's that's the thing. I think people the paperwork, you know, getting started is difficult, and do it with, well, like if you want a street, we're trying to pave our street, we got 12 people, it's in the county, all we want to do is get together on what it costs. People are afraid of this and afraid of that, and it's flat ground. There's like not an issue with erosion or anything, but I think that's the big burden if people don't start anything until they get an agreement with their neighbors. So I think that's a pretty important paragraph.
Nice, thanks.
Yeah, I'll chime in too as one of the former House Meeting Committee members. I'm happy to help with organizing things, especially if they're in the Gualala River. But my topic was usually talking about CFIP, and I should be replaced by, you know, whoever knows about the funding program, which I guess will be the new county version of CFIP or EQIP or something.
Well, I think your expertise is still super valid, Jill. So maybe we'll just get you some support for the new CFIP program. Okay, well, I think since Fred and Steve are not here to speak on their own behalfs about their willingness to keep the house meetings going, we'll just kind of let this stand and make it a goal, but we'll kind of work out the details later about who's going to be doing what on those. Next is just continuing to provide, you know, all this kind of technical, all these different resources anytime that we have public outreach, and or actually it says providing all this information in the following ways. We want to talk about all these resources on our website, in our newsletters, in our events, at our house meetings, etc. And then I apologize, this is just a formatting issue. So our next task is to maintain an active list of foresters on the website. Oh, actually, so this needs to go back here. These are just some updates to our website, which I think are pretty non-controversial. Oops. And our next one is to just maintain communications with our members in general through newsletters and through our listserv. Next is inviting any partners to participate in the working group that are not currently represented. And I think at a later date, we can have a discussion about who those are, since there are probably some folks who are not in the room that we wish were. And so we want to just reach out to them and invite them to be a part of it. Next one is to develop, this should be number 9, develop a video for publication on our website and for sharing with our partners. So this would be an inspirational video talking about management, benefits of active management, and kind of like how, you know, our mission generally. That's something that I think we would like to take on this year or maybe next year. All right, so that's our.
Not to backtrack too much, but just on EDU 8, it might be worthwhile to have do an outreach to members who have kind of ebbed and flowed and more ebbed, and see if there's anything that doesn't appeal to them or hasn't been addressed by the working group, to say, why don't you feel like you want to engage? You know, this thing is very amorphous. So I think we could certainly understand that people just don't have time or what have you. But as Jill pointed out, jumping on a Zoom is a lot easier than driving all the way to the district's office as we used to do. So this is a convenient venue. And one of the things the steering committee raised was this is a new day and age. We have this technology that allows us to pop in and out of Zoom meetings whenever we can. So what's the incentive? What is the value added of our meetings on a month-to-month and versus the cost it takes to host these? So maybe do a little work on that end.
Mm-hmm. Totally. I think that's a great question to put out there. All right. Operations section is just generally like keep operating. I'll let you guys read that later if you want to. Services committee. So what would we like to do in terms of services? So this is a good one. We had this goal out in front of us to participate in updating the Sonoma County general plan and the county update of the CWPP as it regards to forests. And in order to keep us steady on that, we thought we would like create a small committee to help us. I think having reps, come every month and give us updates is awesome. Like Carolyn said, I'll be, providing regular updates to you all on what's happening with the CWPP, but thinking a little bit more about how to engage in that process and really support, her team in updating it. Does that mean that we need to be having like meetings outside of our regular meetings to look at the materials that Carolyn's team is developing? Like what do we need to do? So I'd like to flesh this one out a little bit more. Are there any ideas off the top about how we can help support the general plan or the CWPP?
Maybe Esther, do you want to give a really brief update on the mapping, modeling, and data analysis that your team is undertaking as background?
I wasn't prepared to do that. We're really in the midst of it. We're just Mark Tuckman's working on the hazard part, so that it's basically just concentrating on the vegetation as we know it, as we've mapped it. Of course, it's not going to be it's not a perfect map because I think it's based on the vegetation veg map, which I think was completed in 2017, but that was based on a 2014 LiDAR. It has been updated since some of the big fires, but we haven't done another big, large countywide LiDAR collection effort, which is again, another project that we may identify in the CWPP is that we need to update the vegetation map and therefore update our field models layer, which the hazard assessment is based on. And so the next part of that process, once we complete that, is that we are going to determine what are the values on the landscape. All of you, what do you value? Is it obviously, from what I been hearing today, is a lot of watershed some of those things that are hard to capture on a map, but it's just that ecosystem function, I guess, is what I'll just call it that for right now. We'll probably call it something different in the risk assessment, but identifying what those values are on the landscape and quantifying that in some way, even if that, and what I mean by quantify it is just a way for us to compare values so that, because at the end of the day, we have to try to prioritize all the projects that we want to do in all these locations. And of course, everybody's watershed is the most important, but we have, of course, as we all know, unlimited funding. And so we're going to, so we're going to be prioritizing these projects as well, based on fire hazard and potential ignition risk. So that's in a nutshell what we'll be doing. And go ahead.
I think, we're going to be gathering up a whole bunch of data, and they're running a bunch of new models that have, like are looking at wind and looking at weather stuff and looking at, other things that were not part of the last CWPP, which was put together on $1.98 basically. So, that there's going to be a lot of data coming into play. One of the most important things in this process is to really make sure that the collaboration, which is, there's only 3 requirements for a CWPP from the feds, and one of them is collaboration. So I think that's, to me, that's the most important thing, is to really use you guys to get messages out and get information back in. Have you considered, can you please add to your mailing list? All of that kind of stuff is going to be really, really important from the Forest Working Group, and also having consensus on the CWPP from the Forest Group is going to be important. Because I want everybody to feel like this is a project that is worthwhile. Because one of the things with the last one that was really difficult was the whole thing that Esther alluded to with the project prioritization. We really should have projects prioritized in there so that we have an overall plan for the entire county for, these are the projects that should be done in this order. That's a really hard thing to do because everybody holds on to their projects, right? No, this is mine. I don't even want to tell you I want to do this, because then somebody else is going to take my idea and go to the same fund. It's like there's this, that's the hell of grant funded world, is that everybody's competing for the same funds. And so not everybody always wants to weigh in with their projects and stuff. And it's really important that we do have these large scale collaborative discussions really yearly on all these projects and updating this and all. And the CWPP will be attached to the multi-jurisdiction local hazard mitigation plan, which has to be updated every 5 years. So that's a good thing. That means that every 5 years we have to update the CWPP, but those project updates should happen every year. So having some kind of consistent involvement from this group is important. It's just difficult because we are so amorphous, right? There's no leadership structure to speak of and stuff like that. So I'm just trying to figure out exactly how to plug you into the system.
Okay, in the interest of time, we have about 3 minutes left. Do you want to finish up the last couple tasks?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, Carleon. And if anyone has, if you or I don't know if John is kind of involved in the general plan update, but if anyone has stuff to add, please just add it afterwards. So these are some kind of aspirational services, like exploring opportunities to improve the efficiency and cost effectiveness of permitting processes for forest management practices. So look into the options for preparing a program timberland environmental impacts report. Maybe, supporting the county in developing a programmatic EIR, things that can help fast track this work without without, posing any harm to the environment would be great. So this is, we have like a lot of questions just written in here, like who would do this and how do we help? So if folks have ideas about that, please place them in the document afterwards. And this one is just like responding to any requests that we receive from Board of Forestry or other organizations to help them develop policy. So just be available to policymakers to help them help us with our goals.
I wonder if we should put an asterisk there and say a footnote that lists the agencies that we will connect them to.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, that'd be another page.
I'm just going to make a note.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, next one, learn more about what the opportunities are for small landowners to participate in voluntary markets like cap and trade. Engage potential partners for future joint projects and or enhancing outreach efforts. Partners like the Sierra Club, Forest Landowners of California, the Forest Guild, Society of American Foresters, etc.
Adriana, on that one, is that the right place to put in towels, taking action? I haven't seen it yet in the plan itself.
I think so. Yeah, that seems perfect. And maybe Dee, if you want to like add anything here on your own about what those activities might be, feel free.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, next one, engage forest groups in other counties to leverage opportunities and or assist interested stakeholders in other counties to start a forest group for their area. Okay, that's kind of like on request. Next one is promote forest conservation for and by highlighting climate change adaptation and mitigation benefits. Not totally sure what that one is getting at. Next one, in response to the wildfires of 2017 on the Coast Range landscapes, the working group facilitated the Fire Resilient Forest Initiative. FRFI is committed to assisting with coordinating and implementing forest recovery with multiple partners. FRFI will create a series of short-term and long-term goals to implement county-wide recovery plans. And I think I had put a note that I'm not sure if this is still up to date. Since it hasn't mentioned any of the fire subsequent, and I don't know if FRFI is still active. Maybe someone can help me out with this one.
Dee, is that one of the precursor names of TALS? The Fire Resilient Forest Initiative?
That does sound familiar. Okay, well, since we're not sure, we'll come back to that one. And then I added in this.
That is correct. That is correct. You can change that to the new name, taking action for living.
Oh, okay. Thank you. So then this will be a whole section on TALS, and Dee will work on fleshing this out a little more.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Kim, too.
And then the last one is about just staying informed and engaged on the PG&E settlement funds. So there's that. Our last section is all about fundraising and all the different kinds of opportunities for fundraising that we want to try and take advantage of. So seeing that we're at the top of the hour and don't have a lot more time for discussion, I just want to flag all those things and invite you all to kind of like go back into the document later and work on it. I think we'll probably adopt this at our February meeting. So there's time to, process, discuss, ask questions, etc.
All right. Thanks very much, Adriana, for plugging through that for us. And thanks, folks, for your input on this. I do encourage you just to go through the document yourself and just spend a little time with it. It's not super lengthy, and I think you'll learn a lot about what we've been involved with if you're new to the group. And for you old timers, we always appreciate your input. So please take a look at it. Next month, our meeting will be on February 18th, again from 10 to 12 at this incredible facilitated Zoom meeting venue. One of the things I want to emphasize is that next month we will have Peter giving us a rundown on what he's doing in Napa County on the Angwin Forest. Also, we'd like to share with you an update on the Vital Lands Initiative to give you some insights to the types of things we'll be doing to implement that plan.
And
So
Kim,
thank you all for your participation.
Can I suggest one thing to the Angwin gentleman, to invite people from Napa to our meeting for sure, so that we begin to have more communication and coordination with them.
Okay, I definitely can think of a few folks here in Napa County that might be interested in being involved, and I'll put some feelers out there.
Okay, thanks.
That's great. All right, thanks folks for your participation, and we look forward to seeing you next month. All right.